out with my cronies on a Friday or Saturday night, my father would bid me farewell with these weighty words: David, don't forget who you are. Now, I can pretty well assure you that he wasn't worried that I'd forget my name or street address. You know what he meant. He meant I might forget who I was if I wasn't careful. Don't forget who you are was his benediction as I left home. It is sometimes difficult in modern life, amidst the conflicting claims and confusion of names, to remember who we are. We are forever answering to some false name, for forever misunderstanding who we are and by whom we are named. It is easy to forget. I got to tell you, I think it's even more difficult for our kids today. Who am I is a particularly pressing question for youth. The search for self, the quest for one's identity is the prime developmental assignment of our adolescent years. And today there are myriad causes, groups, philosophies, and cults that are willing and ready to tell us who we are. Who am I? You are mostly a sexual being. The movies, soap operas, and songs tell us. Lusting and being lusted after. Your body is your most important possession. Nurture it, love it, display it, caress it, show it off. Who am I? You are mostly a brain. Mostly irrational, thinking, reasoning, being, absorbing facts and figures, going to school, endless school, bowing down before the temples of Athena, living only to learn, not learning to live, teaching to standardized tests. It's not who you are, but what you know, the educational process tells our children. Who am I? You are mostly maker and spender of money, capitalist, doer, producer, obtainer, preparing for your first marriage or mortgage in suburbia with a 2-car garage and 40-year payments. The advertisers and peddlers tell us. Who am I? You are the self-centered, autonomous, self-made being. This modern scientific secular world tells us. Nobody will look out for you but you. You are the most important project in your life. Nurture, care for, and love your adorable me. Look out for number one. Satisfy, soothe, make happy, thrill, care for your lonely little me. And the truth is that the identity question of who I am is no longer over and done by the time we hit age 21. People in their 30s, their 50s ask the question, still experiment with their lives, mixing in this and that, hoping that the whole thing will gel before it blows up in their faces. To the pressing, who am I question, the church has traditionally responded, you are baptized. The way for a Christian to find out who he or she is not to jump on a Harley and head west, sorry John, but rather to come to look into those graceful waters of baptism, and the reflection of yourself that you see there in those waters is who you really are. Who am I? You are someone to whom a name has been given. The act of christening was the bestowal of a Christian name upon the child by the church. In ancient times, the church literally named the child, often in memory of some favorite saint. Life then becomes a long process of trying that name on for size, growing into it, answering to it, giving it meaning by the way that we live our lives. Baptism continues to be an occasion for naming. At baptism, we're given the name Christian. That name, at whatever age it's given, is a gift. Unearned, unmerited, undeserved, like salvation itself. And in doing so, the church makes a radically different statement about who we are and how we get to be who we are. We're telling the baptized person that his or her identity is a gift, a corporate endowment of the church, something bestowed upon you by grace. We have been taught of late that identity is a personal discovery, the end result of rooting about in the dark recesses of our own egos or our fleeting glimpses of ourselves as we drift from one momentary high to another. May well be shocked by the concept then that identity is given rather than earned. We did not discover our identity as a member of a human family, nor did we earn our family name. We received them as gifts. We learned who we were through the day-to-day love and care that our families showed us. We learned what it is to be called by the name Christian in the same exact way. Give the new name Christian time, and he or she will grow into the name, discover that it fits. That's why you, as a congregation, make promises at baptism to teach and nurture the child in the faith, to help them grow into their name as Christian. Who am I? Baptism says not only that we are the ones to whom a name has been given, but also that we are royalty. We sin, of course, and we live less righteously than we should, but our sin, our unrighteousness is significant and troubling only because we know that we were made for something better than that. Our sin is noteworthy, our inhumanity is blasphemous only because it does not befit the character of one's worth. Worthy. We're worthy because we have been made worthy, bought, adopted, made heir, elevated by the King of Kings himself. The Christian message isn't that we should try hard to act like somebody. The Christian message is simply, we are somebody. The church does not rest as long as even one of God's heirs is in ministry, or in misery, or naked, or hungry, or oppressed, or persecuted, or lost. We cannot rest as long as any institution, government, or person seeks to warp or distort God's royal image in any of God's children. Who am I? Baptism says not only are we named and that we are royalty, but also that we are owned by God forever. God keeps what God purchases. And on the cross, a very expensive price was paid for us. In times of great doubt, when struggling through his own dark nights of the soul, Martin Luther would sometimes touch his forehead and say to himself, "Martin, be calm. You are baptized." In times of our doubt, our inner turmoil, hopelessness, helplessness, confusion, we too would be well to just touch our foreheads where the sign and seal of baptism was made and remember, we've been baptized. Fayette is the name of a woman who found her way to Hobson United Methodist Church in Nashville, Tennessee. Hobson United Methodist is a wildly diverse congregation that includes, as Janet Wolfe, the pastor, described it, people with power and PhDs and folks who have never gone past the 3rd grade, folks with 2 houses and folks living on the street. And as one person who struggles with mental illness declared, those of us who are crazy and those who think they aren't. Fayette lived with mental illness and lupus and without a home. She joined the new member class. And during the conversation about baptism, this holy moment when we are named by God's grace with such power it won't come undone, as Janet puts it, this especially grabbed Fayette's imagination. Janet tells how during the class Fayette would ask again and again and again, and when I'm baptized, I am. The class, Janet writes, learn to respond, beloved, precious child of God, and beautiful to behold. Oh yes, Fayette would say. And then we could get back to the conversation. The day of Fayette's baptism came. Listen to Janet describe it. Fayette went under the water, came out sputtering and cried, and now I am. And we all sang, beloved, precious child of God, and beautiful to behold. Oh yes, she shouted as she danced and ran around the fellowship hall. 2 months later, Janet received a phone call. Fayette had been beaten and raped and was left at a country hospital. So I went. I could see her from a distance pacing back and forth. When I got to the door, I heard, I am beloved. She turned and saw me and said, I am beloved, precious child of God, and catching sight of herself in the mirror, her hair sticking out, blood and tears streaking her face, dress torn, dirty, and rebuttoned askew, she started again, I am beloved, precious child of God. And she looked again in the mirror and declared, and God is not still working on me, and if you come back tomorrow, I'll be so beautiful, I will take your breath away. Beloved. The voice from heaven had proclaimed as the baptismal waters of the Jordan rolled off Jesus' body. Beloved. The voice named him as he prepared to begin his public ministry. Beloved. Spoken with such power that it would permeate Jesus' entire life and teaching. And beloved, he would name those he met who were desperate for healing, for inclusion, for hope. Beloved, echoing through the ages, continuing to name those washed in the waters of baptism, beloved child of God. You and I share those waters. And the church is here to remind you, to remind one another that we have been bought with a price. That someone greater than us has named us and claimed us and seeks us and loves us with only one good reason in mind, to love us for all eternity. Remember your baptism and be thankful, for this is who you are. Beloved, precious child of God, and beautiful to behold. Amen.